we've been having a lot of trouble here, and I've got backup recorders so that the backup records the backup when the other thing doesn't.
Right on.
And just to sort of get it recording, it's recording, so that's it. Welcome. Right.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what are we dealing with here, and how do you want to be called?
Man, I'm good with anything, but Michael?
Michael.
Yeah, that's fine.
I've just been, well, Michael, are we talking SSP here? What's your association with this shadowy world that we live in?
Well, I got more, man, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I'm the real deal, man. I was taken into the remote viewers reverse engineering division by A.R. Borden, Dan Burish, who is one of the major Stephen Greer Disclosure Project eyewitnesses from the original batch of release. I just found out recently he was taken into the exact same organization called the ACIO and mentioned A.R. Borden by name. I'm like, wow, this is important to me because I'm not, me and Dan Burish are not hallucinating the exact same organization of the NSA. So in 2008, I was taken into the fold and learned from them in the reverse engineering technology development division because they know I'm in contact with the Anunnaki. And so they brought me into the fold to make contact with the Anunnaki to ask for help. And which I could share this with you.
Let's just reel back. We're talking good old school stuff.
I appreciate to get to talk about it because I really don't talk about it much because I know better.
Well, this is the opportunity to get down. We're a free format here. We're no. Where do you get in? Where's your entry? And give us a background if you can.
Well, man, I don't even know where to start. I am an Anunnaki human hybrid. I started seeing UFOs. By the way, unfortunately, I'm not trying to look cool, but I just had eye surgery, and any bright lights I had retina reattachment surgery. So I'm not trying to look cool, but glasses help.
Okay.
I live very close to Lake Erie, and probably in about 2000.
So are you Canadian or American?
I'm American. I live in the Northeast Ohio area next to Cleveland. And I started to see these orbs of light, chariots of fire, UAPs, whatever you want to call them. And I started to find any place I could go down and watch this stuff. And I started to accumulate quite a library of video footage. And it started to go viral. And like my YouTube page right now has over 5 million views. And it's because of my UFO footage. Well, that brought the History Channel to my door.
Okay, so what is your YouTube channel, and how is it that you haven't been deleted? Because I was deleted.
Because I have friends in high places, and they can't mess with me. Once I met the Anunnaki, they said, now that we know that you're one of us, no one will ever be able to mess with you again. Because believe me, I was messed with to the point of, I had eye surgery because I was attacked in the past by the men in black who shattered my whole face. I had to have my face wired back together. And afterwards, the doctor was like, you're going to have facial plate readjustments for the rest of your life. Don't be alarmed, but it's going to sound like a firecracker went off. And, in 2020, I had the most violent one I've ever had because I was attacked in 2007. 2020, I went to yawn and my freaking head exploded. And it dropped me to my knees. I'm like, holy shit, what happened? And that caused my retina to detach.
Right. So because that would have caused cranial, the eye sockets would have changed shape.
I don't know because I was knocked unconscious. All I can tell you is I awoke in my bathroom and it looked like something from a horror movie. I was laying in a puddle of blood that was about 6 foot and it was dripping off the ceilings. It was all the bathroom, every wall was covered. The doctor said it looked like I got hit by brass knuckles right here, and it shattered my jaw twice here and once here. So I had to have my face wired back together. Thank God the doctor was like, if you promise me to only eat things that you can mush on the top of your mouth, um, I won't wire your whole face back together. I said, yes, please, because that I have a deviated septum and I can't breathe through my nose. So if you take my mouth out of the equation, things get kind of scary. So that's what happened. He only wired back the bottom of my face. And but that was a really hard rehabilitation. I'll tell you, I had my first interview with CBS News and I was getting ready to do that. And that's when I was attacked. Well, I almost threw in the towel. I couldn't really do the interview because I couldn't speak. I had my jaw wired back together. Something came over me, and I was like, "I'll mumble through it, you son of a bitches." And I did. And when the news tried to broadcast my footage later that evening on the 11 o'clock news, something took out the whole CBS news station, like an EMP pulse. So you imagine me sitting there with my face wired back together, seeing the whole TV broadcast. They're like, "Well, we had some interesting UFO footage to show you." But we don't know what happened. Then all the news broadcasters started doing the do 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 do, kind of making fun of it. And wow, well, someone didn't want us to see this. CBS Action 19 News here in Cleveland. And luckily, at that time, I had a VHS tape rolling. So if people go to Michael Lee Hill, my YouTube page, you can actually look through and you'll find the actual news broadcast that was taken down. Well, that scared me as a grown adult. I'm like, what have I got myself into? Like I was really expecting a knock on the door from the men in black. And but the next morning I was like, well, if they're gonna kill me, I might as well get my information to who I respect the most
I
in the
think that's the
UFO.
best thing you can do. The best thing you can do is publish.
Yeah, and don't stop talking. Make it where if they take you out, they turn you into a martyr and whatever, because that's exactly what happened in this. Originally, I almost tucked my tail between my legs and said, well, I can't do this interview. Something came over me. I'm like, you can't stop me. I will mumble through it. I don't care. And I got to tell you, too, when the film crew came to my house, all of their cameras started going haywire and actually making weird whistling and popping noises and everything. They're like, well, we don't know what the hell's going on. So finally, they got enough to use. And then to see the whole station get taken down. And matter of fact, I've been on the news here so many times. The next time, they actually talked about that. The last time we tried to show Michael's footage, something took out our TV station. So with no intervention, hopefully we'll be able to show it to you kind of deal. But what I want to tell you is right then and there is when I was contacted by A.R. Borden saying that we know you're in contact and we want to give you a course of study to help you prepare to meet your extraterrestrial counterparts, you know,
Well,
however you want to look
at
at
this
that.
stage, are they extraterrestrial? In other words, are none
No,
of them
because they were
here.
here before we were, so I don't know how to classify that. They were, by the way, first of all, if you want to know someone that really knows what they're talking about, when you get into the reverse engineering division and the remote viewers of the NSA, who truly, the ones that are controlling the release of reverse engineered technology, are truly the ones that are in charge on this planet. It's not anyone else. So for me, it's like, man, so wouldn't it be very like the best thing you could do was get the library from the gentleman that led the remote viewers and the reverse engineering division, whose public name was A.R. Borden. And luckily, I worked with them from 2008 until 2013. And he passed away because the work we did was successful in taking down the transhumanists and the people behind the Georgia Guidestones. He said, well, our mission was successful, but we've pissed off the wrong people. They wanted this depopulation agenda to happen. But anyhow, I'm getting ahead of myself. At that point, right on. Well, I was asked to go to a festival in New York here in the States, and I thought I was going camping. But at this time, it was in 2008, I had never even heard of the Anunnaki. There was no ancient aliens on TV. There was no nothing. I got to this festival called Sirius Rising. Isn't that funny? I didn't know they're Syrians, the Anunnaki. Oh, that's what I wanted to tell you is what they communicated to me is Nibiru is our word for their planet. It means the planet of the crossing. Our word for them is Anunnaki, which means those from heaven that came to earth, or royal blood, which is interesting, those of royal blood. But they said our name for our planet that we call it is the Sami, and the people of the Sami, which is like ancient Hebrew, Sa dot dot E, are the Saamai, which is interesting because I believe it might be. There's a race here called the Sami that said they're like from the stars. And I'm like, that's pretty damn close. And Uncle Sam, right? But anyhow, um, so what had happened at this first meeting with them at this Sirius Rising, they said, because on the History Channel show, they decided to test my blood by a Harvard professor. His name was David Systrom. So they said, we want to do an update. Because at first, I just had like 5 minutes on this show of Skywatchers. But what I didn't know is they had just filmed another contactee. His name was Terrell Copeland, and he was a Marine. And they found out he had filmed the exact same UFOs I had over Lake Erie, the same story of contact, and even the same spiritual message had been given to him that I would call that whole thoughts create reality, law of attraction kind of bed of information. But Terrell was getting sent out elsewhere, and they did a thorough medical workup on him, and they found out he had an unknown blood anomaly. And they thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if these two guys that don't even know each other, but have filmed the exact same UFOs and have the same story of contact? What if this other dude, meaning me, ended up with that same blood anomaly? So I didn't even know this because I'll be honest with you, I am a baby. I do not like needles, and if they would have told me what they're doing, I
I don't
probably would
like
have
eating
said
needles
no.
either.
No, I don't want no part of it. But when I got to Boston, I found out that's what's happening. I had to act like a big boy and like act like it didn't hurt because they filmed the whole thing. Uh, but during it, the Harvard professor is like, "Yep, we don't know what to tell you, but you don't have normal human blood." I'm like, wait a minute, man. What are you talking about? Because to me, this isn't a TV show anymore. Like, do I have something to worry about? Is there like, he goes, what do you think unknown means? It's kind of mean about it. Like, he goes, what do you think unknown means? We don't know what to tell you. He said, if I had to venture a guess, there is a virus at play that's tricking your mind into releasing these massive amounts of creatine kinase in the brain. And creatine kinase brings extra oxygen into the bloodstream to facilitate healing. The normal amount are 25 parts per liter of blood. But if you've ripped a muscle or had a heart attack, your brain will increase the creatine kinase or CK levels to around 250 to 300 tops because the extra creatine kinase brings extra oxygen, which equates to how much chi or prana that you're holding at a cellular level. So the normal amounts are 25 parts per liter of blood. Only if you've been damaged do you increase to about 250 to 300. Where they had me clocked at was 2100, but with no medical problems whatsoever. Now, as I'm telling you this, I can tell you once I was taken into the remote viewers, that secret division, he told me it had about 200 members. And he said, my levels of 2100 would put me in about 12 of those 200 had my bloodline. And I would have been in the middle of those 12 individuals. The top was 12,000 parts per liter of blood. And they said he pretty much had the ability to spontaneously heal himself. That they told me he had been hit by a particle beam weapon, which at that time I was like, particle beam weapon? What the hell? Like, have I been beamed onto a Star Trek episode? But anyhow, they said he was able to pretty much brush it off, and he was okay. But, I'm not spontaneously healing by any means, but I do heal very fast and run a little bit hotter than usual. But anyhow, so I meet the Anunnaki. They said, "We want to talk to you. We heard you've been filming us over Lake Erie." I'm like, "Yep." They said, "The blood anomaly that was revealed on the History Channel is an indicator that you're of our hybrid bloodline known as the Nephilim in the Bible." And again, all of this, yes, but no. Like when I was brought into this structure, they called it the I Dream of Genie bottle because this festival land, you could actually buy land there. And so where I was at, these people owned the land and had built a wooden deck with a gazebo structure. And once you got into that gazebo, it was totally surrounded with like kind of tapestry that had, you've seen like New Age tapestry that has sacred geometry all over it and everything. And every single facet of that gazebo had a different beautiful tapestry. And then hanging in the middle was a chandelier and had all these candles all the way around. The whole thing was candlelit. And then there was a round couch and there was an individual sitting on the couch. And right when they led me back there, they said, "Some people here have been wanting to talk to you." And he led me in and then he left. So I'm there by myself. And I look at this person who had a female partner with him on the bed. And they looked totally normal. But when I got to their face, it looked like a shadow or like a smoke was coming up and like they look faceless. I couldn't make out any facial features, but I'm thinking, is it just the way the light from these candles are hitting them? But it was weird because yes, that's what I was told is a lot of the Anunnaki, they don't really favorably look upon mankind. And I don't agree with this point of view, but they don't think humans are, what's the word I'm looking for? Haven't earned the right to see their true faces. So they have enough chi and prana in their own cellular network to send energy to you to make you see, like they're not shapeshifters per se, but they can make you see what they want you to see. I think that might even explain some of the bird-headed things, but we can get into that. But anyhow, well, I seen what was really there because I spent the next hour and a half with this individual. I found out he had a very high-ranking position within NASA. I've been working with Richard C. Hoagland, and he's the only one I've told this person's identity because I don't think it's right. This person's a real person. He's retired now, but he's got family. I don't think it's right for me just like, but I will tell you, I learned that he was the head of the technology acquisition department for NASA throughout all of the Apollo missions. And I was told this was Marduk. Well, Marduk's meat suit avatar vessel that he communicated. So if I was talking to the human meat suit, it had a face. But as soon as Marduk spoke through him, faceless. And that was really disconcerting, as you can imagine. I've never seen someone become faceless in front of me. And I said, "Can I see your true faces?" He said, "No, you'll have to wait till tomorrow to see our faces." I thought right there was weird because he didn't say, "What are you talking about?" Like, what? I got a face. No, he said, "No, you'll have to wait till tomorrow." And it did. Like, what happened was after that hour and a half, we can discuss exactly what happened because it was a council meeting. Because they said, in your past, we were once known as the Anunnaki. In your past, you were once known as Ea Enki, the water bearer. I'm like, what the hell does that mean, man? I'm like, you might as well come and tell me that, hey, man, you're the Easter Bunny. It's like, well, okay, whatever, dude, But now I'm going to speak almost hyperdimensionally, and I apologize, but well, that's exactly. Um, he arranged for because of my guidance and tutorage from them. I was taken into a technology transfer program, and I was the technology transfer program between the Anunnaki and humanity to bring cosmic harmonious frequencies to this planet, and frequencies that align oneself with galactic source energy. So I followed their intuition and their guidance, and I created. Oh, actually, I got. Can you see that? This is the cymatic image. Well, this might even be better. I got them on everything because this image is quantumly entangled and like quantumly entangled and holographic principle entangled with cosmic harmonious frequency. The elders of the Native American Indians, you see, I'm Seneca, Iroquois. And what the world's going to find out is the Nephilim bloodline is housed within the Native American Indian culture. Nowhere else. It's not the Skull and Bones. It's not any other of these secret societies. Yes, Hills of Galilee, and it came through the Mayan culture first. And once Team Bad Cop followed us everywhere we went. And then, we taught them pyramid building and the calendar. But then when the flesh and blood sacrifices set in, the elders were like, well, they've learned something, but they obviously haven't learned enough. So they got the hell out of Dodge and left the Mayan culture, went right across the bay to Crystal River, Florida. What I'm telling you, no one knows on this planet right now. Crystal River, Florida, you'll find a state-ran archaeological site called Crystal River Mound Site. And what they found was they know it's a Mayan site because there's all kinds of mounds and stone stelas. And when you line up a stela with a mound, they track processional equinoxes, solstices, moon phases, Florida. And yeah, there's actually a lot of video on this, but what you'll find is because if you got Amazon Prime, there's a show called Unexplained and Unexplored. And one of the things they're tracking down the Mayan elders. So they had tracked them down to Crystal River, Florida. I know this because I told you I just came from Florida. That was a half an hour away from where I lived. And the first place my fiance took me to was that mound site. But then what happened was these people said, well, listen, this has all the blueprint, the schematics of being a Mayan settlement. But if that were true along this axis, there should be a Mayan step pyramid. And if it was any other Mayan settlement, there would be a step pyramid along this axis. But that took them right out into Crystal River. And that's a very big river. So on the other side was land, though, that was no trespassing and owned by the state of Florida. So they couldn't actually go on it and put feet on there, which I don't know if you'd want to anyhow. Like everything in Florida can kill you. You know what I mean? Like I come from Ohio and nothing can kill you. There's like snakes, alligators, spiders, But anyhow, but what they did do is send up a ground penetrating radar drone and scanned all the land over there. And sure enough, they found the Mayan step pyramid on the other side of the river. And they said it's actually one of the best ground penetrating radar images that has ever been taken because it's actually further closer to us in the timeline than what's in Mexico. But it's the first Mayan step pyramid ever found in North America. That's because out of the hills of Galilee, to get out of persecution, and by the way, this is all proven with DNA genetic testing. It's called haplogroup X2A. And what you're going to find out is haplogroup X2A was only found in the late 1990s, not too long ago. And haplogroup X2A only exists in 3% of the Native American Indian tribes, mostly in the Iroquois. But what I've found out is the Sioux, which is our Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota, have retained their star knowledge from that ancient bloodline more so than any of the other tribes.
Yes,
But
I've
the
noticed that
Iroquois,
about ancient tribes, including African people, that they have a more recent, more they have a better recall of stars than
yeah, and the
than
Dogon tribe,
Europeans
right?
who've been so the European cultures.
Well, man, I got some really cool stuff to share with you about England and St. Mary and Michael's ley line, and no one knows on this planet yet. But so Crystal River. Oh, so haplogroup X2A, 3% of Native American Indians own that right now. I'm haplogroup X2A. But when you go back in time, the next place you find haplogroup X2A is in the tall, giant skeletal remains of the skeletons that have been removed out of these mound sites. But when you keep going back in time, where you encounter the largest concentration of that bloodline is going to tell you where it came from, right? It's the hills of Galilee. For real, not my opinion. It's scientific that's where it's traced back to. This is the lost tribe of Israel, but it's the oldest Atlantean bloodline that was truly Enki's. And what's really fascinating is to find out Edgar Cayce prophesied all this already, that people know that he talked about the Hall of Records underneath the pyramid and whatnot. But he also said what happened to the Atlanteans. He said they ended up intermingling into the Native American Indian tribes of North America. And so I can tell you, I've met some of the grandmothers of this bloodline. And the one grandmother said, Michael, you've been officially recognized as a member of the Serpent Clan. I was like, well, wait a minute. First of all, what the hell is the Serpent Clan? And she said, it's those of us that have galactic heritage. She said, every tribe has a serpent clan that consists of their medicine men and their medicine women and their shamans. And Edgar Cayce said the Atlanteans intermingled into the Native American Indian tribes. But I want to tell you that when the veil dropped and I met the actual Anunnaki hierarchy that is incarnated into the Native American Indian tribes, I met Yahweh. Chief Yahweh was known long before the first testament of the Bible to the Cherokee and the Iroquois here. And he was said to be a chief that sat in between these two galactic councils of war chiefs and peace chiefs. He's the only one that sat in the middle of these two uh, tribes, and he's the only one who held a seat on both sides, and he was directly in the middle. So his job within the council is the 50-50. 50% of the time, he's going to see if he can get you to give your energy away to illusionary outside sources and actually participate in these flesh and blood sacrifice ceremonies. That's what I found out, because they're hoping to find those that will not go along with it and not succumb to the human mass groupthink that will lead you up the crooked steps and follow the crowd to where you do not want to go. So what
Otherwise known
happened
as a
was,
Pied Piper.
yes. So I told him, no, I do not agree. I respect what you're doing here, because there's flesh and blood sacrifice ceremonies that I bore witness to. Broke me down, actually. I said I will not participate, but I appreciate, this, but this isn't my ways. He looked at me and said, Michael, Spirit is so glad that you would not participate in their flesh and blood sacrifice ceremonies, because Spirit looks at anybody who participates in these flesh and blood sacrifice ceremonies as spiritual prostitutes. And he pointed out to him. So that's where the veil dropped. And he said, Michael, I work with the seven lords of light and the seven lords of darkness. And the only one who sits directly in the middle of these two galactic councils. So then when I found out about Chief Yahweh, I'm like, wait a minute. This is my brother, Enlil. And so the next time he and I, because his name in the real world was Chief Golden Light Eagle. By the way, people don't even know this. He's been on Ancient Aliens so many times. He's probably the most prominent Native American Indian on the planet. His book called 1111, The Star Symbols, is in the Smithsonian right next to Edgar Cayce's work. That's who we're talking about. And I can tell you, if you go to YouTube, he told the producers of Ancient Aliens exactly who he is. They just didn't know how to decode what he was telling them. They said, Chief, can you explain to us what a chief is? You know, explain the headdress. He said, well, people don't really know there's two kind of chiefs. And you can find this on YouTube as well. Just type in chief, golden light eagle, and Ancient Aliens, and look for the clip that's like behind the scenes. And he says people don't know there's two kind of chiefs. There's war chiefs and there's peace chiefs. This is the only bonnet or headdress that is both. He told him exactly who he is, and I could tell you these people, it's just not, this isn't channeling or anything. I've spent time with these people. As a matter of fact, me and my brother, because I asked them then after all of this, I'm like, wait a minute. This is awkward, but Spirit has led me to understand that you are Yahweh. Enlil, my brother. And he said, yes, Michael. He said, and I want you to know this isn't the first time we've met. We've met in many other incarnations, and the last time was not pleasant. I'm like, oh shit, what did I do? You know, I still don't know this day. But he said, but I realize now you were only showing me my own darkness. And so one of the grandmothers are the ones that are truly in charge of our culture. It's the grandmothers that oversee everything. They're the ones that even sit above chiefs, you know? And she said, Michael, we you've been recognized as rainbow. And she said, rainbow does not mean to us what it means to other people. Rainbow means you've cleaned your chakras. And then only when they're free and spinning unencumbered, he said every chakra has a Merkaba, a double tetrahedron, spinning in it. And only when it spins up to speed and unencumbered does it emit light. And she said to those of us that have the gift of sight, you have become the whirling rainbow. That gets in, I don't know if you've ever heard of the rainbow warrior prophecy or the whirling rainbow prophecy of the Hopi, but it was about there would be a whole class of people that were known as rainbow warriors, and they were here to make this planet green again and teach mankind how to live in harmony and not be polluting this planet and raping it the way that we do. And that's why after all of this, I got my Native American First Nation name. Rainbow Warrior Eagle is my Indian name. And this group of people that I began working with, because I'm the Seneca Mound Builder representative for what's called the Star Knowledge movement. And what is Star Knowledge? It's the knowledge of light and sound and how it creates physical reality. And the last thing before my brother passed away and passed the torch to me is we were filmed for the Canadian Public Corporation. We filmed a show called Star Beings about thousands of years of contact between our people and star beings. And they're beginning to have elders and indigenous elders come to the University of Ottawa uh, for like weekend long powwows on solstices and equinoxes, but also to start teaching curriculum about what star knowledge is, learning about Chief Corn Planter, who actually met with George Washington and uh, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and taught them these ideals of we the people and democracy. Because this isn't how it was in there. They learned it from the Seneca Iroquois, and it became our Constitution and it became America. But interestingly enough, man, look at George Washington, who, especially with just what happened in America, this blew my mind. His
Are you
spirit's
talking
like,
about the
Michael,
Masonic thing because Washington was Masonic and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
he was, but he was not Republican or Democrat. I went because Spirit's like you should check, and I did. And it said at the end of his 8 years in office, he actually warned at his farewell speech about if America ever adopted a dual party system, a party of Republicans and Democrats, it would rip this country apart from the inside out, and it would cause loyalty to your party over loyalty for what's better for all. And if that's not what's happened, I don't know what has.
Well,
But I'm like,
we're
how come this?
talking the 6th of November, so we've just had the final results, I imagine by now, of Trump's situation.
Uh, yeah, he won. So I'm like, to me, almost if thoughts create reality, and what I learned from Yahweh himself is the dark has no dominion over unless you give them permission and go and open up the back door and let them in. Otherwise, you can invoke your own spiritual free will and go,
No, I
no.
think this is extremely important because so many people are living in fear from all the things which have been done to us. And because of
Yeah,
YouTube, you can't say most of what's been done to us. But is there any solutions you can offer on that
yes.
without
I think the
interrupting your
solution for
flow?
mankind,
Without interrupting your flow.
oh no, it's all good, man. I think it's a great question. I think the best thing that America as a world power could do right now is go back to the Iroquois elders and learn where we screwed up. First of all, they had a female in charge of everything. They warned against dual party systems. And what I found out from some of the elders of the Pleiadian side of the Anunnaki is there was a blueprint ready to bring mankind into becoming a galactic society, and it was America. But somewhere along the line, it was infiltrated, and they said you can tell the timeline when it happened was with the creation of the Federal Reserve and the IRS in the States. And because the
Well,
Federal
that's
Reserve,
fundamentally going back to a hell of a lot which happened at the end of the 1800s, early world. Why did we have World War One? Something very
yes,
bad. Jekyll Island, all that stuff.
yes, exactly. But so my suggestion and my work here is to heal America, go back to the actual elders who taught what America was supposed to be. Study Chief Corn Planter. Look at what he brought to the table and learn that everything Chief Corn Planter learned, he learned from an individual named the Peacemaker, who united those 5 tribes of the Iroquois, who at that point had been at war with one another for generation after generation, brother against brother, tribe against tribe. It was probably more difficult to unite those 5 tribes into unity than it would be to try to unite Republicans and Democrats. And he did it. And so I'm like, somewhere, because what the elders told me is when this plan to bring mankind into becoming a galactic society and a peaceful galactic society, it was infiltrated. But that original blueprint is still at play and at work. And the grandfathers are getting ready. And I am Ea means grandfather in our ancient language. And I've been recognized as Ea and grandfather. You know, when I told you when I met the Anunnaki, they told me, you were once known as Ea, Enki, the water bearer. Well, first of all, I didn't know what Ea meant. It took until 2016, and I met them in 2008 for one of the grandmothers to tell me, you do know that the most ancient name for grandfather is Ea. She said that every word for Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota. In Lakota, that word will end in LA. For Dakota, it'll end in DA. And in Nakota, it'll end in NA. So she said, so the name for grandfather in Dakota is Iada. I went, oh my God, grandfather's Ea. It, now it's like, that's why people are like, well, how can you say you're Ea? Isn't that egotistical? I'm like, for what the universes went through to bring cellular memory back into my mind and fill in all the gaps and give me the information of who I am. Because they said, Michael, we've removed your memory blocks. And they said, but what you're going to realize is all of us every single one of us has lived many, many, many lifetimes and had many, many, many names. They said you've had so many names that what you're going to find out is names become pointless and useless, that what you truly are is nameless, but not voiceless. I always love that saying. Isn't that beautiful? What you truly
Well,
are
this
is
is giving you
nameless.
a voice now, so keep talking.
Well, I appreciate that. So my suggestion to the world right now is take this. First of all, think about the irony that the lost tribe of Israel intertwined into the Native American Indians. Now, ask any fundamentalist Christian, Catholic, what is your role to the lost tribe of Israel? Well, we're supposed to protect them and make sure nothing bad happens to them. Well, guess what? You genocided us. The worst genocide on this planet that's ever been seen. Some people have the number up to 100 million women, children, and
Well,
men.
certainly the United States, sorry, America, there was something like 100 million wiped out when the Europeans
Yes,
arrived, or
yes,
the later day Europeans.
yes, because I call them the European Genocide Squad because at first, Chief Corn Planter and George Washington became the best of friends. Matter of fact, George Washington enamored Chief Corn Planter because he learned how to create America from Chief Corn Planter to the point that the first treaty ever signed between America and the United States, North American First Nations, was called the Corn Planter Tract. You can look it up, and it has George Washington's own signature, and it says, "Forevermore, for as long as the grass shall grow and the sun shall shine, this is the land of Chief Corn Planter and his heirs." His heirs is the whole Iroquois population. And so they are a sovereign nation within a nation. They're not part of the United States. They're not part of legal systems here or the taxation. They are their own identity and not to be trifled with. And what happened was that's why right now we still own our own land in New York. When you go to Niagara Falls, you go through what's called Salamanca, New York. You go by past a sign that says you've now left the United States of America. You are under Seneca law and provision, and there's been a toll for your approval to pass through our lands that's been paid on your behalf by the United States government. And but the land in Pennsylvania in the late 1960s, which now, mind you, this was protected under the Corn Planter Tract, signed by George Washington himself. And the Constitution says the treaty is the supreme law of the land. It supersedes every court, every state, and every judge in every state. And it's the treaty. Well, they've broken every treaty that's ever been signed. So when I sit there and watch TV and they're like, "Well, we got to uphold the Constitution." I'm like, then give us all our land back. What you've done is the most unconstitutional thing you could have ever done, even according to our own forefathers. This is not because George Washington loved Chief Corn Planter. So what you're saying is true. At first, there was no problem. There was nothing but admiration between both cultures. But when I want to finish that story, in the 1960s, they wanted to turn Pittsburgh into a superpower. And at that time, there was just coal power, and it kept getting flooded. And it's hard to build a superpower when your source of energy is getting flooded regularly. So they decided they needed to dam up the river that was flooding it, but that would have flooded our sacred burial grounds and everything that was protected under the Corn Planter Tract signed by George Washington. They did it anyhow. They came at gunpoint with machine guns in the 1960s and forced 600. That's my people. That's where I'm from, is the Pennsylvania uh, Seneca Chief Corn Planter. I can tell you here, yeah, I guess it won't sound that weird, but not only I've had my memory blocks. I can tell you because of my blood work and stuff done in my non-human blood, I am Chief Corn Planter's heirs. I actually know where my biological great 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 grandmother and grandfather's remains are, which is a Mormon church, which is very interesting. I'm not Mormon, but I'm finding out they know a lot about ancient history and the lost tribe of Israel coming and intermingling into the Native American Indians. Isn't that something? But anyhow, uh,
But
let me
this
get
I
a
think
sip of
is
water.
essential. This is very important to know this now.
Well, thank you.
I
Thank you
mean,
for
are we
giving
going
me.
back to Pike and people like that at the formation of the United States?
Yeah, because look at really what happened with Enki. People don't even know, but Enki became known as Ptah, Osiris in Egypt. You know, uh, Marduk became known as Ra. It's just the same, many names, same voice. What you truly are is nameless. Do you know anything about the Anunnaki mythology? According to all the Akashic records, like I was their geneticist. I I'm a scientist. You know what I mean? Like people's words mean so very little to me. Actions and behavior